Hello, it's Tony with the Code Guys, and tonight we have a special treat for you. We have a PC Tech, David, and he's been working on his A+ certification. We're going to be doing a mini video session on the objectives of the CompTIA A+ certification, and there'll be many videos per objective, but we are going to have a kind of casual discussion and an interview with David, and he can give some pointers as to what you might need to be focused in on as you take your certification test. And in subsequent videos, we won't do as much introduction. We may do a small introduction, but this being the first video, give David an opportunity to tell you about his studying and what he's been doing to get to prepare for the certification test. So that being said, welcome to the show, David. Tell us a little bit about your journey to become an A+ tech.
All right, well, Tony, thank you for having me on and everything. I appreciate it. Basically, just a lot of reading and studying and finding out what the CompTIA A objectives are, because they are the faculty that does administer the standards for the test. And one of the first and foremost things you do want to find out is through the vendor CompTIA A. And
you can visit their website, and it's pretty cut and dry as far as the objectives go.
Right. Yes, you can download the objectives, and there are books out there at Barnes and Noble and Borders, and you can order online for whatever resources that you need.
Your avenue was to go with the Mike Myers methodology, and I know that you've been also using some of Professor Messer's videos to help you out on the way. Oh
yeah, well you want to use various resources, because one resource may not provide the clarity that you need or the kind of depth that you're looking for. So I always advocate to go to as many different resources as you can, but first and foremost, make sure it is accurate and it is along with the objectives of what CompTIA has said. So
yeah, there's probably a lot of bogus information out there on the net that you could fall victim to if you don't use a good source.
Well, yeah. Well, like I mentioned before, CompTIA A is a good map of what you need to follow. And
yeah, they're the test givers, so I mean that's where you should go.
Right, exactly, and that's who you want to please the most as far as like the test objectives are concerned.
Well, how about we jump right into what I would consider as, what does getting your A+ certification mean as someone that is entering the IT field? And can you tell me a little bit about how an A+ certified person would go about getting into the field? As far as, I know that some of the objectives post certification are trying to introduce a green IT person into the field. So what are some things that a person is going to learn in the CompTIA A certification on best practices when dealing with the customer?
Well, I think the CompTIA A objectives in the certification instills the confidence that you have the knowledge that it takes to fulfill whatever job that needs to be done for you and the employer. And also as well, it gives you the understanding of how to troubleshoot and fix the computer in a way that's really organized and thorough. And I think one of the most important features of the book that's really presented, especially in the very beginning, is something called operational procedures. And it goes in depth with how the PC technician should interact with the customer in terms of communication, how to dress, certain protocols that you do in emergencies.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what a PC tech would be responsible for as far as communication goes, and how would you interact with the customer?
Well, as far as the communication is concerned, one thing that I think is very essential for a PC tech is to be a good listener, and you want to listen to what the customer is saying so that you can pick up clues and hints as to what the problem may be. It's not always 100% correct, but you want to give your full attention, and that you do not want to interrupt, and that you want to make sure that when the customer finishes stating the problem, that you want to repeat and reiterate just to make sure that there's a clear understanding.
Now, is that something that's going to be tested on the test? Will there be communication questions in one of the objectives?
Oh, by all means, yes.
Okay.
Because I think CompTIA wants to make sure that you understand how to interact with customers and clients for the companies that do hire you. So
I bet that some people skip over those chapters and just focus on the technical, and they may get stumped by some of the lesser technical things on the test. You know, they may just say, "Oh, I know that," and then I bet that does happen, and people trip up on that.
Well, see, it goes back to going back to the CompTIA A objectives, because a good portion of the objectives is operational procedures. In fact, 1 out of 5 questions will be dealing with that. So that's basically 20% of your score right there.
Yeah, so
it's
that's
very
good to know.
It's very imperative. So that's why I said, you need to go and check out the CompTIA objectives. That way you understand it. It's not just all technical, but there's many things that encompass on getting your certification and successfully dealing with the customer.
Well, like everything, it's those questions that you don't think about that get you, right? It's really you really have to be thorough as far as the A plus. And I know since I 20 years ago or 15 years ago looked into the A plus, it's really become a certification to be reckoned with as far as how much detail goes into these tests. It's not just something you can study in an afternoon and pass now. I know that you've done some substantial study, and I think people that think it's the same old A plus of yesteryear might get burned. We want to move on a little bit to some of the tools that a CompTIA A PC technician would have in their toolkit, and some of the operational procedures related to handling equipment when they do go out to a customer site. So why don't you give us a little bit of information as far as that goes? I know that's a big feature in the test.
Well, I guess, just basically you want to have pliers when dealing with components and everything. You want to have a Torx wrench. You want to have a hemostat, a 3-prong component picker, a flashlight so you can see the printed circuit board. One really important thing as well that I cannot stress enough, and this is going to be part on the test as well, is that when you open up the case, you need an anti-electric static discharge wrist strap.
Oh, okay.
That way you do not damage the components or anything while you're working on the PC.
One thing about being out in the field that I've run into is dealing with the customer's desk environment and some of the security measures, and in certain situations, definitely in our environment with a high classification and security clearances required. Can you tell me a little bit about the environmental security and some guidelines an A plus tech would need to follow as far as ensuring a customer's security and protecting yourself?
Well, I think the first and foremost thing is to gain the confidence of the customer by establishing trust, and that is, you do not touch anything that's on their desk, whether it be a paper clip, a pencil, a paper, without their permission. One thing you want to be sure of is to avoid passwords at all cost. And one of the 2 ways you want to do that is either have the customer write down a temporary password and have it changed later on, or you can have the customer sitting there throughout the whole time, which is going to be more than unlikely as they're going to have other things to do.
It's probably a good idea to back away when they're typing the keyboard, or maybe look the opposite direction. Or I've actually exited out of a cubicle when somebody's keying their password, and just because the liability is there. I mean, you don't want the customer to ever accuse you of coming back and using their passwords to gain access.
Right, because if the customer knows that you know the password and something was to happen, say that data encryption, the encrypted data was to be lost, or hard drive crash, or whatever unforeseeable mishaps occurs, that you're going to be blamed.
Right. Yeah, the PC tech takes the blame in many cases.
Well, the reason why the PC tech takes the blame because the customer puts 100% confidence that the PC tech will restore the computer in the state that it was before they needed a PC tech to begin with. So.
Right. Well, I think this is a good segue into another objective. I want to thank David for his being here today.
Thank you.
And our next session will be following up shortly. Thank you for tuning in, and look forward to more CompTIA A discussion with David, the PC Tech. And thank you. Please subscribe, and we'll talk to you later.